Job, the man who challenged God. The book of Job opens with a man described as blameless and upright, someone who feared God and turned away from evil. Job possessed vast wealth, including 7,000 sheep, 3,000 camels, 500 yoke of oxen, and 500 female donkeys. He had 7 sons and 3 daughters, making him the greatest man among all the people of the East. His righteousness extended beyond personal conduct. He regularly offered burnt offerings for each of his children, concerned they might have sinned or cursed God in their hearts during their feasting. The narrative shifts dramatically to a heavenly scene where God's divine counsel meets. This cosmic courtroom includes angelic beings called sons of God, who present themselves before the Lord. Among them stands a figure known in Hebrew as Satan, not the devil, as commonly understood in modern theology, but rather the accuser, or the adversary. This being's specific role within God's counsel is to question, challenge, and test the faithfulness of God's servants on earth. God initiates the conversation by pointing to Job as an example of perfect righteousness, asking the Satan if he is considered this blameless servant. The accuser responds with a calculated challenge to God's assessment. The Satan argues that Job's faithfulness is purely transactional. He only serves God because of the protective hedge surrounding him and the abundant blessings he receives. Remove these material benefits and divine protection, the Satan claims with confidence, and Job will curse God directly to his face. God accepts this challenge but establishes clear boundaries for the test. The Satan receives permission to touch everything Job possesses, but Job's life itself must remain untouched. This cosmic wager sets the stage for one of literature's most profound explorations of faith, suffering, and divine justice. In rapid, devastating succession, Job loses everything that defined his earthly success and happiness. Sabeans attack and steal his oxen and donkeys, killing the servants tending them. Fire from heaven, possibly lightning, burns up his 7,000 sheep along with more servants. Chaldean raiders organize 3 bands to steal his 3,000 camels and murder additional servants. The final catastrophe strikes when a great wind from the wilderness collapses the house where all 10 of his children are feasting together, killing every son and daughter. Despite this complete devastation, Job responds with worship rather than cursing. He tears his robe, shaves his head in mourning, falls to the ground, and declares, "The Lord gave, and the Lord has taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord." The text explicitly states that in all this, Job did not sin or charge God with wrongdoing. The Satan returns to the heavenly council, unsatisfied with Job's response. The accuser argues that Job will break if his own physical body is afflicted, claiming skin for skin. All that a man has, he will give for his life. God permits this second, more personal test, allowing the Satan to afflict Job's body while still protecting his life. Job is immediately struck with painful boils covering his entire body from the sole of his foot to the crown of his head. He sits among ashes, scraping his infected skin with a piece of broken pottery. Job's wife, witnessing her husband's agony, urges him to curse God and die, but Job rebukes her, asking, "Shall we receive good from God, and shall we not receive evil?" Even in physical torment, Job maintains his integrity and refuses to sin with his lips. 3 friends, Eliphaz the Temanite, Bildad the Shuhite, and Zophar the Naamathite, hear of Job's calamity and come to comfort him. When they see him from a distance, they barely recognize the once prosperous man. They weep aloud, tear their robes, and throw dust on their heads. For 7 days and 7 nights, they sit with Job in silence, recognizing the magnitude of his suffering. Ecclesiastes, the search for meaning. The book of Ecclesiastes presents itself as the words of the preacher, or Koheleth, in Hebrew, meaning one who gathers, or assembler. Traditionally attributed to Solomon in his later years, this voice speaks from a position of having experienced everything life offers: wisdom, pleasure, wealth, and power. The book opens with its most famous declaration, "Vanity of vanities," says the preacher, "vanity of vanities." All is vanity. The Hebrew word translated as vanity is hevel, which literally means breath or vapor. This word appears 38 times throughout the book, creating a haunting refrain that characterizes human existence as fleeting, insubstantial, and ultimately incomprehensible. Like breath on a cold morning or smoke rising from a fire, life appears briefly and then dissipates, leaving no permanent trace. The preacher embarks on a systematic investigation of life's potential sources of meaning. He begins with wisdom itself, declaring, "I applied my heart to know wisdom and to know madness and folly." Despite achieving great wisdom, surpassing all who were before him in Jerusalem, he concludes that increased knowledge brings increased sorrow. The wise person and the fool both die and are forgotten, making wisdom's advantage temporary at best. Next, the preacher turns to pleasure and material enjoyment. He denies himself nothing his eyes desire, building houses, planting vineyards, making gardens and parks with trees of every kind. He accumulates silver and gold, acquires male and female singers, and experiences every form of human delight. Yet, after achieving everything his heart could want, he looks upon his works and finds them all vanity and a striving after wind. The pursuit of work and achievement proves equally futile. The preacher observes that all human toil is motivated by envy of one's neighbor, and that a person may labor wisely only to leave everything to someone who did not work for it. Even worse, there is no guarantee the heir will be wise or foolish, making a lifetime of careful work potentially meaningless. The book's observations about life's unpredictability form some of its most memorable passages. For everything there is, a season and a time for every matter under heaven, but humans cannot discern these times or understand God's work from beginning to end. The race does not always go to the swift, nor the battle to the strong. Time and chance happen to everyone, making human planning and effort uncertain in their outcomes. Death serves as the great equalizer that renders all human distinctions meaningless. Rich and poor, wise and foolish, righteous and wicked, all face the same fate. The preacher repeatedly emphasizes that the dead know nothing, their love and hate and envy have perished, and they have no more portion forever in anything done under the sun. Yet within this seemingly pessimistic framework, Ecclesiastes offers moments of profound insight about finding joy. The preacher repeatedly counsels readers to eat, drink, and find enjoyment in their work, recognizing these as gifts from God's hand. He advocates for enjoying life with one's beloved spouse, wearing white garments, and anointing one's head with oil as expressions of contentment with God's provision. The book concludes with the famous passage about remembering one's Creator in the days of youth, before old age brings its limitations and death approaches. The final verdict remains: fear God and keep His commandments, for this is the whole duty of man. Proverbs, the blueprint of divine order. The book of Proverbs presents wisdom as the fundamental principle underlying all creation and human flourishing. Unlike Job's exploration of suffering, or Ecclesiastes' meditation on meaninglessness, Proverbs operates from the assumption that the universe is ordered, moral, and comprehensible. The book opens with its central thesis: the fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. Fools despise wisdom and instruction. Proverbs portrays wisdom as more than human intelligence or practical knowledge. In the book's most striking passages, wisdom is personified as a woman who existed before creation itself. She declares, "The Lord possessed me at the beginning of His work, the first of His acts of old. Ages ago, I was set up at the first, before the beginning of the earth." This divine wisdom was present when God established the heavens, marked out the foundations of the earth, and set the boundaries of the seas. The book's structure reflects different collections of wise sayings, primarily attributed to Solomon, but including contributions from other sages like Agur and King Lemuel's mother. The first 9 chapters present extended discourses on wisdom's value, while chapters 10 through 31 contain shorter, more practical proverbs covering every aspect of human behavior and relationships. Proverbs operates on the principle of moral retribution, the belief that righteous actions lead to blessing, while wickedness brings destruction. The blessing of the Lord makes rich, and He adds no sorrow with it. This worldview assumes a direct correlation between moral choices and their consequences, presenting life as fundamentally fair and predictable for those who live wisely. The book addresses practical matters with remarkable specificity. It offers guidance on speech, warning that death and life are in the power of the tongue, and counseling careful, measured words. It provides extensive instruction on work ethic, contrasting the diligent person who will stand before kings with the lazy person who will come to poverty. Financial wisdom receives detailed attention, with warnings against debt, surety for strangers, and get-rich-quick schemes. Family relationships form a major theme throughout Proverbs. Parents receive instruction on disciplining children with love and consistency, while children are commanded to honor their father and mother. The book's final chapter presents the famous Woman of Valor passage, describing an ideal wife whose worth is far above rubies, and whose children rise up and call her blessed. Proverbs also addresses social justice and care for the vulnerable. Whoever oppresses a poor man insults his maker, but he who is generous to the needy honors him. The book repeatedly emphasizes that God takes special notice of how people treat the powerless, making social responsibility a matter of divine concern. The book's confidence and wisdom's reliability creates an idealized picture of how life should work. Those who listen to wisdom will dwell secure and will be at ease, without dread of disaster. The righteous will never be removed, while the wicked will not inhabit the land. This optimistic worldview assumes that following God's principles leads to predictable, positive outcomes. However, Proverbs acknowledges certain limitations to human wisdom. Many are the plans in the mind of a man, but it is the purpose of the Lord that will stand. The book recognizes that ultimate control belongs to God, even while encouraging human planning and effort. This tension between human responsibility and divine sovereignty runs throughout the collection. The practical nature of Proverbs makes it immediately applicable to daily life. Its teachings on friendship warn against associating with angry people, counsel loyalty in relationships, and emphasize the value of honest rebuke from a friend. Its guidance on leadership emphasizes justice, mercy, and the responsibility rulers have toward their subjects. The divine dialogue between the three. These three wisdom books do not exist in isolation, but form an intricate theological conversation that addresses the full spectrum of human experience with the divine. Each book represents a different voice in humanity's ongoing dialogue with God about the nature of existence, suffering, and meaning. Rather than contradicting each other, they provide complementary perspectives that together create a more complete understanding of divine wisdom. Proverbs serves as the foundational voice, establishing the principle that God has ordered creation according to wisdom and justice. It presents the ideal, a world where moral choices have predictable consequences, where righteousness leads to blessing, and where following divine principles ensures prosperity and peace. This book assumes that life makes sense, that patterns can be discerned, and that wisdom can be acquired and applied successfully. Ecclesiastes enters the conversation as the voice of honest observation, pointing out the gaps between Proverbs' idealized world and lived reality. The preacher has followed wisdom's path, accumulated wealth and knowledge, and yet finds himself confronting life's fundamental unpredictability. He observes that the righteous sometimes suffer while the wicked prosper, that time and chance affect everyone, regardless of their moral standing, and that death ultimately renders all human achievements meaningless. Job provides the third voice, not the cynical observer like Ecclesiastes, but the faithful sufferer who experiences the complete collapse of Proverbs' promised order. Job lives righteously according to wisdom's principles, yet loses everything through no fault of his own. His story demonstrates that suffering can strike the innocent, that divine justice operates according to principles beyond human comprehension, and that faith must sometimes exist without understanding. The dialogue between these books reveals the complexity of divine wisdom. Proverbs teaches that wisdom generally works, that integrity, hard work, and righteousness typically lead to positive outcomes. Ecclesiastes acknowledges that wisdom's patterns are not absolute, that life contains elements of randomness and meaninglessness that resist human understanding. Job demonstrates that even when wisdom's patterns completely break down, God remains trustworthy and wise, though his ways transcend human comprehension. This three-way conversation prevents any single perspective from becoming dogmatic. Proverbs alone might lead to a prosperity theology that blames all suffering on personal sin. Ecclesiastes alone might result in nihilistic despair about life's meaninglessness. Job alone might encourage passive acceptance of suffering without engaging in practical wisdom. Together, they create a balanced approach that embraces both the reliability and the mystery of divine wisdom. The books also address different life stages and circumstances. Proverbs speaks to those beginning their journey, providing practical guidance for making wise choices. Ecclesiastes addresses those who have achieved success but found it lacking, offering perspective on life's limitations. Job ministers to those experiencing inexplicable suffering, demonstrating that faith can survive even when understanding fails. Each book contributes essential elements to a complete theology of wisdom. From Proverbs comes the understanding that God's creation has order and that human choices matter. From Ecclesiastes comes the recognition that human knowledge has limits and that mystery is inherent in existence. From Job comes the assurance that God's wisdom operates on a scale beyond human comprehension, but remains fundamentally good and trustworthy. The hidden cosmic stage. All three wisdom books hint at a reality far grander than human experience alone. A cosmic stage where divine wisdom operates according to principles that transcend earthly understanding. This hidden dimension becomes most explicit in Job's heavenly council scenes, but it underlies the entire wisdom tradition's understanding of how God relates to creation. Proverbs reveals this cosmic dimension through its personification of wisdom as present at creation's beginning. Wisdom declares that she was beside him, like a master workman, and I was daily his delight, rejoicing before him always. This passage suggests that the practical wisdom taught in Proverbs reflects the very principles by which God structured the universe. The moral order that rewards righteousness and punishes wickedness is not arbitrary human convention, but reflects the fundamental architecture of reality itself. The cosmic stage becomes more mysterious in Ecclesiastes, where the preacher repeatedly acknowledges that God's work cannot be fully comprehended by human minds. He has made everything beautiful in its time. Also, he has put eternity into man's heart, yet so that he cannot find out what God has done from the beginning to the end. This passage suggests that humans are created with an awareness of transcendent meaning, but lack the capacity to fully grasp the divine perspective that would make sense of life's apparent contradictions. Job provides the most explicit glimpse of this hidden cosmic reality through its opening scenes in the heavenly council. The conversation between God and the Satan reveals that earthly events often have heavenly significance that remains invisible to human participants. Job's suffering serves purposes in the cosmic realm that he never learns about, suggesting that human experience participates in a much larger drama than individuals can perceive. When God finally responds to Job from the whirlwind, he takes Job on a tour of creation that emphasizes the vast scope of divine knowledge and activity. God describes his intimate involvement with weather patterns, astronomical movements, and the behavior of wild animals in remote places where no human ever ventures. This divine speech reveals that God's attention and care extend far beyond human concerns to encompass the entire created order. The cosmic perspective helps explain why human wisdom has both power and limitations. Proverbs' principles work because they align with the fundamental structure of reality as God designed it. Honesty, diligence, and justice produce positive results because these qualities reflect divine character and cosmic order. However, humans can only perceive small portions of this vast system, which explains why Ecclesiastes observes apparent randomness and Job experiences inexplicable suffering. This hidden cosmic stage also explains the recurring theme of divine hiddenness throughout the wisdom literature. God's ways often appear mysterious, not because they are arbitrary or capricious, but because they operate on a scale and according to purposes that exceed human comprehension. The divine perspective encompasses past, present, and future, considers the welfare of all creation, and works toward ultimate purposes that may not be evident in any single human lifetime. The wisdom books suggest that recognizing this cosmic dimension is essential for proper human humility. Attempts to fully systematize divine behavior or to demand complete explanations for life's mysteries fail to account for the vast difference between human and divine perspectives. True wisdom involves acknowledging this limitation while still engaging faithfully with the portion of divine truth that has been revealed. The fear of the Lord, the true beginning of wisdom. The phrase, "the fear of the Lord," appears as a refrain throughout all three wisdom books, serving as their unifying theological foundation. This concept represents far more than simple terror or anxiety about divine punishment. Instead, it describes the proper human response to encountering the infinite, holy, and utterly transcendent nature of God. Understanding this fear is crucial for grasping what the wisdom literature means by true wisdom. In Hebrew, the word yira, translated as fear, encompasses a range of responses including reverence, awe, respect, and worship. It describes the appropriate human reaction when finite beings encounter the infinite creator. This fear is not the cowering terror of a slave before a cruel master, but rather the profound recognition of one's proper place in the cosmic order. It combines deep respect with loving devotion, acknowledging both God's power and His goodness. Proverbs establishes this principle at its very beginning. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. Fools despise wisdom and instruction. This opening statement indicates that all genuine learning must start with proper recognition of God's authority and character. Without this foundation, human attempts at wisdom become mere cleverness or manipulation, lacking the moral grounding necessary for true understanding. The book repeatedly returns to this theme, declaring that the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, and the knowledge of the Holy One is insight. This parallel structure equates fearing God with knowing Him, suggesting that proper reverence leads to genuine understanding of divine character. Those who fear the Lord receive His instruction, find His favor, and experience His protection. Ecclesiastes concludes its exploration of life's mysteries with the same principle. The end of the matter, all has been heard. Fear God and keep His commandments, for this is the whole duty of man. After examining every possible source of meaning and finding them all vanity, the preacher returns to this fundamental truth. Even when life appears meaningless and God's ways seem incomprehensible, the proper human response remains reverent obedience. Job's experience provides the most dramatic illustration of what fearing the Lord means in practice. Throughout his ordeal, Job maintains his reverence for God, even while questioning divine justice. When God finally appears in the whirlwind, Job's response demonstrates true fear of the Lord. I know that you can do all things, and that no purpose of yours can be thwarted. Therefore, I despise myself, and repent in dust and ashes. This response combines acknowledgement of divine power with personal humility. The fear of the Lord produces specific practical results according to the wisdom literature. It leads to hatred of evil, as Proverbs states, "The fear of the Lord is hatred of evil. Pride and arrogance and the way of evil and perverted speech I hate." This moral clarity flows naturally from proper understanding of God's holy character. Those who truly fear God cannot simultaneously embrace what He abhors. This reverent fear also generates confidence and security. In the fear of the Lord, one has strong confidence, and his children will have a refuge. Rather than producing anxiety, proper fear of God creates stability because it aligns human life with ultimate reality. Those who fear the Lord can face life's uncertainties with peace because they trust in God's sovereign control. The fear of the Lord extends life and brings satisfaction. The fear of the Lord prolongs life, but the years of the wicked will be short. This promise does not guarantee immunity from suffering or premature death, as Job's experience demonstrates. Instead, it suggests that those who live in proper relationship with God experience life's fullness, regardless of its duration. Wisdom literature presents the fear of the Lord as both the starting point and the culmination of human understanding. It begins the journey toward wisdom by establishing proper perspective on God's character and human limitations. It also represents wisdom's ultimate goal, living in harmonious relationship with the Creator while maintaining appropriate humility about the mysteries that remain beyond human comprehension. The unified human experience. The three wisdom books together map the complete territory of human spiritual and emotional experience, providing voices for every stage of faith and every type of life circumstance. Rather than presenting a single uniform perspective on divine wisdom, they acknowledge the full spectrum of human responses to God's sometimes mysterious ways of governing the world. Proverbs speaks to the human need for order, structure, and moral clarity. It addresses those who are beginning their spiritual journey, seeking practical guidance for making wise choices in daily life. This book satisfies the human desire to understand cause and effect, to believe that good choices lead to positive outcomes, and to find reliable principles for successful living. Proverbs validates the human experience of seeing patterns in life, of witnessing justice rewarded and wickedness punished, of finding that integrity and hard work generally produce beneficial results. Ecclesiastes gives voice to the human experience of disillusionment and existential questioning. It speaks for those who have followed wisdom's path, but encountered life's fundamental unpredictability and apparent meaninglessness. The preacher articulates the honest doubts that arise when experience contradicts expectation, when the righteous suffer and the wicked prosper, when death renders all human achievements ultimately insignificant. This book validates the human struggle with life's apparent randomness and the search for meaning in an often senseless world. Job represents the human experience of inexplicable suffering and the crisis of faith that accompanies it. It addresses those who face catastrophic loss, who experience pain that seems completely undeserved, who find their fundamental beliefs about divine justice challenged by harsh reality. Job's story validates the human need to question God when life becomes unbearable, while simultaneously demonstrating that faith can survive even when understanding fails completely. Together, these three voices create a comprehensive theology that acknowledges the full range of human experience with the divine. They recognize that different people at different times need different aspects of divine truth. The young person starting out in life needs Proverbs' practical guidance and moral framework. The successful person confronting life's limitations needs Ecclesiastes' honest assessment of human achievement's ultimate futility. The suffering person whose world has collapsed needs Job's demonstration that God remains trustworthy even in the midst of inexplicable pain. The books also reflect different temperaments and personality types within the human community. Some people are naturally drawn to Proverbs' systematic approach to wisdom, finding comfort in clear principles and predictable outcomes. Others resonate more with Ecclesiastes' philosophical questioning and willingness to acknowledge life's mysteries. Still others connect most deeply with Job's passionate struggle with divine justice and his refusal to accept easy answers to complex questions. This diversity of voices prevents the wisdom tradition from becoming rigid or dogmatic. Each book serves as a corrective to potential extremes in the others. Proverbs' confidence in wisdom's reliability is tempered by Ecclesiastes' recognition of life's unpredictability and Job's experience of inexplicable suffering. Ecclesiastes' potential cynicism is balanced by Proverbs' practical optimism and Job's ultimate faith. Job's focus on suffering is contextualized by Proverbs' celebration of life's goodness and Ecclesiastes' call to find joy despite life's limitations. The unified human experience these books describe also includes the progression many people experience throughout their spiritual journey. Many begin with Proverbs' straightforward faith in divine justice and wisdom's reliability. Life experience often leads to Ecclesiastes' more complex understanding of existence's mysteries and limitations. Crisis or suffering may bring individuals to Job's place of wrestling with God, while maintaining fundamental trust in divine goodness. The books demonstrate that mature faith must be large enough to encompass all these experiences. True wisdom involves neither naive optimism that ignores life's harsh realities, nor cynical despair that abandons hope for meaning and purpose. Instead, it requires the ability to hold together confidence in God's ultimate goodness, with honest acknowledgement of life's genuine mysteries and difficulties. The eternal relevance. Written thousands of years ago in ancient Near Eastern cultures vastly different from the modern world, these wisdom books continue to speak with startling relevance to contemporary human experience. Their enduring power lies not in their specific cultural details, but in their profound understanding of universal human struggles with meaning, suffering, and the search for divine truth in an often confusing world. Modern readers immediately recognize themselves in Proverbs' practical concerns about work, relationships, financial management, and moral decision-making. The book's warnings about debt, its emphasis on diligent work, and its guidance on communication remain as relevant today as they were in ancient Israel. Contemporary society's struggles with integrity in business, faithfulness in marriage, and responsibility in parenting mirror the same challenges Proverbs addressed millennia ago. The book's insights about human nature prove particularly timeless, Its observations about pride, anger, laziness, and the power of words describe patterns of behavior that transcend cultural boundaries. Modern psychology has validated many of Proverbs' insights about personality, relationships, and the consequences of various character traits. The book's understanding that external success without internal character leads to ultimate failure resonates strongly in contemporary discussions about leadership, ethics, and personal fulfillment. Ecclesiastes speaks with haunting relevance to modern existential concerns. The preacher's observations about the futility of pursuing meaning through wealth, pleasure, achievement, or even wisdom itself mirror contemporary struggles with materialism, hedonism, and the search for purpose in secular society. His recognition that life contains elements of randomness and meaninglessness that resist human control resonates with modern scientific understanding of chaos theory, quantum mechanics, and the role of chance in human affairs. The book's meditation on mortality and the brevity of human existence addresses universal concerns that modern medical advances have not eliminated. Despite increased life expectancy and improved quality of life, contemporary people still grapple with the same fundamental questions about death's meaning and life's ultimate significance that troubled the ancient preacher. Ecclesiastes' counsel to find joy in simple pleasures and to accept life's limitations offers wisdom that remains profoundly relevant to modern readers seeking contentment in an achievement-oriented culture. Job's exploration of innocent suffering speaks directly to contemporary struggles with natural disasters, disease, terrorism, and other forms of inexplicable tragedy. Modern readers facing cancer diagnoses, losing children in accidents, or experiencing economic collapse find in Job a voice that validates their pain while refusing to offer simplistic explanations. The book's rejection of easy answers to complex questions about divine justice resonates with contemporary skepticism about religious platitudes and quick fixes for life's deepest problems. The cosmic perspective revealed in Job's divine speeches offers relevant insights for modern scientific understanding of the universe's vast scale and complexity. God's emphasis on the intricate details of natural processes and his intimate knowledge of creation's workings parallels contemporary appreciation for ecological interconnectedness and the sophisticated systems that govern natural phenomena. Job's humbling encounter with divine wisdom provides a valuable corrective to modern tendencies towards scientific arrogance or technological hubris. The three books together address contemporary concerns about religious fundamentalism and secular materialism by offering a more nuanced approach to faith and wisdom. They demonstrate that genuine spirituality must be large enough to encompass both confidence in divine goodness and honest acknowledgement of life's genuine mysteries. This balanced perspective offers an alternative to both rigid religious dogmatism and cynical secular despair. Modern readers struggling with doubt, suffering, or the search for meaning find in these ancient texts a sophisticated theology that takes their concerns seriously while pointing toward transcendent hope. The book's emphasis on humility, their recognition of human limitations, and their ultimate trust in divine wisdom provide resources for navigating contemporary challenges while maintaining both intellectual honesty and spiritual faith. The wisdom literature's integration of practical guidance with profound theological reflection offers a model for contemporary spirituality that engages both mind and heart, addressing both daily concerns and ultimate questions about existence's meaning and purpose.